There's Dave. Well, once again, Tri-County Cab Company, Fred and Mike, those guys over there each and every week making this show possible. I can't say enough about those guys. Don't drink and drive, gang. 309-497-1111. Put it in your phone now for when you need it later. Dave, you ready?
Absolutely. We want to give a big thanks out to them. And, of course, my words each and every week brought to you by Elevation Training Mask.
We're ranking up Mr. Shamrock.
Great.
I'm a few minutes late. I hope he doesn't knock me out for this.
Yeah.
Hi, Frank.
Yes, it is.
Hey, good evening, sir. This is Big Perm with UMOR. How are you tonight?
Big Perm, what's happening? I am fantastic.
Man, I'm just chilling, brother. I'm sitting here with my co-host, Dave the Butcher Clifford. We're just hanging and talking crap. Dave, you still there, bud?
Absolutely, and it is my pleasure to have you on the show, Mr. Shamrock. A big fan of your commentary.
All right on. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
Thank you for taking the time, man. I mean, I'm not a professional by any means. I drive a cab for a living, and I do this show on my off day. And to get to talk to a guy like you that I've watched like since MMA was around, I mean, pinch me. Am I dreaming? Hey, I'm super stoked, man. So forgive me if I sound like an idiot at times.
No, I can make up.
Without a doubt. For those that don't know who Frank Shamrock is, good Lord, guys, you must have been living under a rock. Frank, this guy, he's an MMA legend, and he has, like I said, held almost every title in MMA that's existed. If there's a title out there to be had, I think Frank's had it. But, gosh, Frank, where to start? I think the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is what we were talking about earlier, was you got a book coming out here October 1st that I am pre-ordering on Amazon right after the show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this book that's coming out?
Sure. It's, the story of my life, at least the first 40 years of it or so, which is what I'm quickly approaching here. And, at the end of my fighting career, at least when I saw it was coming to an end, I had a lot of time on my hands, so I started kind of sitting down and writing my story out. And then the more I wrote, the more I realized I needed to write this story, not only for myself, but also to inspire some people, maybe help them out through some difficult times, because the things I went through were just kind of crazy, and that I'm alive and successful is just, just all a blessing.
Well,
and then with this book, Frank, you
I don't know what to ask after that. That was a great.
Right.
I mean, what do you? I mean, that was awesome, dude. I mean, that is true. So as far as inspiring people goes, let's get a little deeper into that. What is it about your story that you would like people to be inspired by?
Well, I just, when I was a kid, I always was looking for somebody who had kind of, come from where I had come from, and was successful. And I just never found that guy. Be it my dad, who was, left when I was 3, or anybody else who came along in my life. But, yeah, I mean, it was just, my whole life has been crazy. And I don't know, it's so weird for me, because now that I read it in one bulk and volume, it just seems even crazier that I lived through all these things, and I was successful. The things that I think might inspire people are just the journeys I had. I mean, I was living on the streets when I was 12, and I was a ward of the court when I was 11, and I went to juvenile hall and foster care and everything you could ever imagine, sort of exploring the California penal system. And I learned to be a criminal. I learned to be a fairly crappy criminal, apparently. But mixed martial arts sort of saved my life, and it gave me a direction and a directive. And the book is my story and how I got into MMA and what it did for me, and what it could do for other people, or what the opportunities are, anyways.
Well, and that I think we did answer that first question right here, because of the fact that I'm an announcer by trade, and I do these shows for the pure enjoyment of it, and for the fact that I'd like to learn where the the journey of the sport that I'm now a part of and now has become my life started, and what the people were like that came here and put the cobblestones down that I now walk on and starting to build my own success. I see a lot of people, and I've never fought. Well, I had a fight when I went to prison, but that's for my book. So honestly, beyond all that, I've turned my life around, and now I'm rededicated to being a father, was something that I was not very good at early on. I've got a lot, I could tell you a lot of stuff too, which it's bringing me in by, and that was where my next question was going to go to, is how revealing is this? And you answered that question as well by opening up, and sharing that. And that is how you influence people, and that is how you share things, how you inspire people is by sharing. And the fact that you're willing to do so because you're so grateful for what you have is truly a treasure that those of us in America don't find very often. So it's a pleasure to be speaking.
It's a very revealing book. I had no idea I had so much honesty inside of me.
And I bet you it was probably a liberating thing as well, huh?
Yeah. Well, because this whole journey, most of the time, I was just fighting to survive and be successful and follow this dream, and I wasn't really paying a lot of attention to to what was going on around me. But some pretty crazy stuff had happened along the way.
Well, and I see this. And what I was going for, what I do now is I'm in the trenches. I work in amateur MMA in Michigan. So I see a lot of these guys that are taking their first fight. A lot of them, they got out of jail that week and they found a gym because they got nowhere to go, and this guy took them in because he's like that. And next thing you know, this guy's got some friends and some fans and a place to live and a job. And even though he's an amateur fighter, he's kind of somewhat famous in his hometown, and it starts to build a character for somebody that no rehab or counseling has ever seemed to do much, in my opinion. How do you feel about that?
Well, I would agree wholeheartedly. I mean, martial arts and a martial community is a family, and it gives you, they give you instant feedback because you usually get your butt kicked, or they turn on you if you're doing something wrong, or they direct you. But they become your family. So, to me, that's what the journey was about. Was at the end of it, I had this huge family, MMA family, martial arts family. That's what the whole thing became about.
And it grows every day. And one of the things we were talking about with one of our earlier guests tonight, even, was that we find each other, and we know who all of our. It's still such a small community, even though it looks huge, and they make it look big. The fact is, when there's an expo or when there's something dedicated to real fans on a Thursday night, that's when you see the 200 or 300 people, and that's where you see all the local owners of gyms and promoters, and that's the bare bones of it. And there's, regardless of competitive nature of everybody, there's love in all of those rooms.
Oh yeah,
it's driven by that. It's an interesting ambiance to it that almost goes unspoken at times, and really, because of the nature of the people who take part in it, it's not said very often, but it really is. When you break it all down, it's pure and unabashed love for whatever it is that's going on, whether you're the guy talking, whether you're the guy in the middle of the ring introducing the guys, whether you're the referee, whether you're the coach, the fighter, or the person that paid $500 for a front row ticket. You're there for love, and we all get to experience it for a little while, man. It's cool that you were there to help build this and keep it going.
Well, there's nothing more powerful than being that guy in the ring, orchestrating all that with your fists. So I can certainly say I've seen all sides of it, but that's the most fun. That guy has the best role and the hardest.
Well, Frank, and earlier, just a few minutes ago, you said you were looking for a guy. And you didn't find him. But later in life, you found a guy named Bob Shamrock. Tell us about the role that he played in your life, and then what was it like, being with him?
Sure. I mean, I was in my probably fourth or fifth group home by the time I met Bob, and he showed up in his fancy Cadillac, and I was in juvenile hall, and he interviewed me like all other guys had done. And I got ready to give him my spiel and my whole, criminality plan and all that, and my reformed speech. And he just kind of shut me down, told me not to save the BS, and he's like, "Let me talk, and I'll tell you how things are at the Shamrock Ranch." And he just kind of laid it out like a man and like a dad, and it's like, "And if you want to do this, we'll do it with you," and da da da. And it just sounded awesome. And he was the first guy to kind of stand up and say what was right and what was wrong, and stand by it, and not have an agenda, or not be an alcoholic, or not be a weirdo or something. And he took me in. I thought for certain when he left the room, I was like, yeah, I'm never going to be in his, into his house. He saw right through my BS. And he took me in and became my father. He like with about 2,000 other boys, he became my dad, and taught me about being a man.
That's just awesome, man. And we had interviewed Ken a few weeks back and talked to him about Bob as well, and I actually had a chance to talk to Bob years ago when I was trying to sell him some advertising, and we got to talking about you and Ken and the fight career, and how I had fun beating up on you guys on the video games, and he just seemed like such an awesome dude to talk to, and I can imagine that he was probably a darn good dad too.
Yeah, he was a good dad. I hadn't had good experiences, and then Bob came along and it was old school, it was old fashioned, but he was right, and he was good, and he saved a lot of kids. Ken and I were just the ones that became very successful and famous, but he saved a lot of kids, and I really feel like I owe him my life.
Well, Frank, getting back to the book, this book you also worked with a couple of guys on the book, Mickey Rourke and Charles Fleming. What was the experience like working with those guys on the book?
Well, Mickey's an old friend of mine, and him and I have done some films together and hung out, and might have gotten a couple street fights together. But
he's a retired fighter himself, right?
Yeah,
he's hardcore.
He's hardcore.
That's amazing.
He's the most hardcore dude you'll ever meet. Like, he's straight out.
He looks like it.
He lives, he's an old timer, man. He's a heart of gold kind of, look you in the eye. Mm-hmm. Punch you in the chin kind of guy. But he wrote my foreword because him and I are friends, and he read the book. We've been through a lot together. He read the book and was like, "Wow, dude, really?" He goes, "This is awesome." So, and then Charles, I struggled writing the book. I'm not a writer, I barely. I graduated from continuation high school, with my wife and my son, who was a year old by then, and 3 jobs. So I didn't really have much of an education. So when I went to write this thing, I was realizing my shortcomings because I'm like, wow, it sounds great in my head, but it's not. Yeah, it's not getting out. I can't get it on paper. So I spent about 2 years, trying to write it, and then I spent about a year finding the right guy. And one of my colleagues introduced me to him, and it was Charles, who became my partner in this book, and it took me a year to sell him on it because he's like, "You guys are crazy." He's like, "Why would you do this?" And why? I was like, I have this important story I got to tell people. I need your help. So I drug him around from show to show for a year, and after a year, he goes, "Now we need to write this book."
Now I get it.
He goes, "I get it." He goes, "I get it." He goes, "It's super important. I see." And so then we wrote the book, and the rest is history, I guess.
Well, yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading this. I actually, I love the title too. I very much. Go ahead, Jeremy.
I was just going to say for our listeners out there, our listeners out on the West Coast, Friday, September 28th in Sacramento at the Barnes & Noble at, I think this is pronounced the Promenade at Natomas.
Yes.
It's out on 3561 North Freeway Boulevard at 7 p.m. Pacific time. Mr. Shamrock, you'll be there, won't you? You'll be there signing books.
Yeah. Be there signing books, shaking hands, kissing babies. Don't think we're drinking any beer because I don't think Barnes & Noble let us drink beer, but we'll be hanging out.
So definitely get down to the Barnes & Noble and meet with Frank and get a copy of his book. And like I said, I'm pre-ordering after we get off the phone here. So I'm looking forward to reading this darn thing as well. Should be interesting. But
yeah, I want to hear it now, especially after you tell me how crazy it is. I'm very interested in that because I'll tell you what, in very just like you said, sharing with people. I've got things when I tell people, they're like, "What? Why'd you do that?" And it rung a bell. It's pretty cool to hear that. Now, one of the things that I kind of wanted to ask about, and it's interesting because you hear about it here and there in snippets, and there was if you look up you and your brother, it always mentions that you guys had not always saw eye to eye on things, perhaps. Now, is that covered in the book?
Oh, yeah.
And have you patched things up since then?
No.
Oh, wow.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, Dave.
Well, shit, I'm sorry. God, I feel like a dick. Sorry, man.
No, it's not like that. Ken and I were never close. So then when all this, strife and fame and issues came along, we never got back to being close because we weren't.
Right.
And the closest I could get to him was trying to sign a fight with him and try to kick his ass and give him a ton of money because that's all I could figure out what to do for him.
It's funny you say that, Frank, because I met Ken back in April at an event up in the Quad Cities, and I said to him, the one fight that I always wanted to see was you and Frank. And right as we were taking a picture together, and right as the picture was snapped, he mumbled, "Yeah, me too." And so how come that fight never happened, man?
I had it paid for. I had everything, pay-per-view, everything. And, when the Kimbo Slice fiasco happened, everyone was just like, oh, yeah. No one wanted anything to do with it. So once he didn't show up, to fight on CBS, everybody backed out. They were like, they thought he was a loose cannon. They thought he was nuts. They didn't trust him. And, his career and brand was going into the drain, and everybody pulled the plug. So I had to do the same. I lost a fortune on it.
Well, for all the listeners and MMA fans out there, that was just me, the MMA fan. One question I always wanted to ask, and man, I have you on the phone, so I had to ask you.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, I still have the contract framed in my book of dreams.
Jeez.
And it was never, never got to. It
was
him
one of
and
the things.
Were the ones that got away.
Oh man, that'd have been a great fight too, huh?
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that I've got to do since I've started and become more and it became my life working these shows. I've got to meet Ken several times and work with him a little bit. I got to drive. This is a cool story to share with you, actually. I got to drive with him. I was working for King of the Cage as like a fighter liaison and co-promoter guy, like just basically a gopher that'd do whatever the promoters wanted. And Ken had to go do a workout at this private gym that was like an hour away. They needed someone to drive him, so they elected me to do it. So I got to spend 2 hours alone with him in a car. And that was something that made me stay. At the time, I wasn't getting paid shit, and I was, messing up, and I was like really wondering, because I really wanted to be an announcer, and they had a solid announcer, and I was just working with them on the road for little or nothing, and I really was kind of not disgruntled, but just figuring, gosh, I tried the wrong thing, better get back to butchering. And talking to him changed it, and honestly, nothing necessarily that he told me personally, but the fact that I got to do it and the way he shared with me, honestly, inspired me to continue. And it's cool that you are the same.
That leads me into my next question. Frank, we have a lot of amateur fighters that listen to our show all over the country, and I always like to ask pros when we've got you guys on the show, what advice do you have for the up-and-coming amateur that's, on the cusp of turning pro, or maybe not quite ready and really wants to make that jump? I mean, what do you got? What kind of advice do you got for those guys?
Well, for me, it always came down to finding a good teacher or trainer, like a main guy who really got it, and then building my core little group of guys, which inevitably became my friends or my family or my kind of core. And then after that, it's just having a good, somebody managing or taking care of management that had a head on their shoulders. And most of those guys weren't fighters.
No.
They were businessmen, they were guys that understood business, because fighters were better at fighting. So, it's you got to build that team and realize that your body's a star, and you can only race for a short period of time. So if you're going to get out there and race with the big boys, you need a real team and real management, and a real race car, not an old Ford or something.
Yeah, it really does make a difference once you get to those, like some of the pro shows I do, and now at casinos and stuff, where you got guys that are early in their pro career. The ones that stick around and get good bites and good deals and good contracts are the ones that have that guy. Now, a lot of times it's their coach that just happens to either have a lawyer come with them or knows enough to negotiate good contracts and get his guy on good cards. And that you hit it right on the head. That's what it comes down to. If you're good enough, they'll find you.
They'll find you, and everybody's looking for that guy. If you got talent, everybody's looking for you. So it's a matter of getting in there and finding some good guys. You'll know if they're good guys. You can feel it, especially when you're young. You train hard. If they train hard with you and guide you in the right direction, they're probably half decent guys. But yeah, you got to think of it long term, because you're getting damaged, and that damage can only last for a short period of time.
And you want to be able to enjoy the rest of your life with the fruits of the labor and the hard work.
Yeah, you don't want to get beat up for 50 years. That's no good either.
No, it isn't. It isn't. I get to hang out with Dan Severn quite a bit too, and he shows a little bit of that from time to time.
Yeah, he's still wrestling around and moving around and stuff. Pretty aggressive.
I announced his last fight, dude. It was awesome.
Yeah. So, but
and he kicked this young guy's ass, dude. He wrestled this big dude. He just beat him to hell. It was awesome. I was like, wow, he's 50-something. I mean, it changes every time I see him. Nothing but love for him, though.
Besides being a fighter and writing books and doing all sorts of other things, you also, like Dave said at the beginning, he loved your commentary. You are a commentator with Strikeforce. Tell us, what you think, what it's been like, being in front of the camera.
In the beginning, it was pretty stressful, to be honest with you, because there's really no learning curve. They just stick you out there. They turn the lights on. They're like, go. And then you're good or you're not. You have a job or you don't. There's no, no one ever critiques you. No one ever gives you any support. You're either...
No, it's a call or no call.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So much like
I've done a couple. It's awesome.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Win or drown, go, and you're all, So once I got past that and realized that you just go and that's what you do and everyone's fine and whatever, and kind of once I got into the role, now I actually really, really enjoy it. Preparation's hard and all the other stuff. And it's real work, but, there's nothing better than sitting back with my friends for a couple hours and talking about fights and getting paid for it.
Sitting right there. Who's your favorite person to work with?
Yeah, Morrow. I love working with Morrow. Morrow, nice.
His voice just.
Beautiful voice, and he's so passionate. Even if we do 4 hours of live TV, and it's like, at the end of 4 hours, you're like, you're dragging. And Morrow just keeps you going, because he's just always fired up and excited and passionate, and he's like, elbowing you. He's like, come on, this is awesome. Like, yeah. Yeah. So
what about Boss or Michael Chiavello? Have you worked with those guys enough to enjoy that?
I worked with Michael. Yeah, I've worked with Boss. I like working with everybody. The good thing about me is, I'm not a professional announcer. I guess I am, but I'm not, trained or anything like that. I can feel, I've done enough teaching and acting and stuff. I can feel the ebb and flow of what's going on, and I'm very comfortable and confident in that. So I work well with pretty much anybody. But Morrow, I just love working with Morrow. He's the best.
Guys, that boxing bell signified we got about 2 or 3 minutes left with Frank before we got to go. I hate to say that, but time flies when you're having fun.
I know. I was having flashbacks. I was like, whoa.
Where'd that come from? Oh, shoot. Well, Frank, once again, you got a book coming out October 1st, and the name of the book is Uncaged, My Life as a Champion MMA Fighter. Again, it'll be in stores October 1st. You can also pre-order right now on Amazon.com, and I put a link on our Facebook page. Any other details about that you want to throw out there? Any shout-outs or thanks or anything like that you want to put out there?
Oh, well, I should probably thank my wife for putting up with me for 4 years while I wrote a book. No, the other thing, I'm going to go on a book tour, and I haven't been on the road for probably 10 years. But I'm going to go on a real book tour and go see everybody and teach some martial arts and kind of connect with all the communities that I saw, on the 10 years I was on the road. So I'm really looking
coming to Michigan. Coming to Michigan.
I'm going everywhere, dude. I'm going everywhere.
I got some people that might put you up.
Yeah, I have taught in every state in the United States and in most countries. So I'm going to go back to everybody I've been hanging out with and see their kids half grown up and in school and teach martial arts. I'm going to go back on the journey again, man. I'm so looking forward to it.
Big MMA family reunion.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I taught these guys 15 years ago, and now they're all grown up. They own the companies. Their kids are 10 years old, and now I'm training their kids, and it's the craziest experience ever.
That's awesome, man.
Well, listen, Frank, how can people get in contact with you if they want to stay in touch with you? I know you got a Facebook page that I've checked out.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook at Frank Shamrock and Twitter at Frank Shamrock, and I'm at frankshamrock.com, and I'm on YouTube at The Frank Shamrock, and I don't know, I'm just Frank Shamrock everywhere. I'm everywhere.
Frank Shamrock everywhere. He's like Samoa Fair, man. He's everywhere.
I am, dude. I'm everywhere.
That's awesome.
Well, listen, Frank, man, I don't want to get off the phone here because, like I said, I'm just like the world's biggest MMA fan, and I don't know if I'll ever get this opportunity again, but I want to say thank you so much, man.
No worries, man. Well, I'm glad you guys had me on, honestly, and I really appreciate you guys,
Hey, you're quite welcome.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Frank, this is Dave the Butcher again. I really appreciate your candor and willingness to speak about anything and everything. You've been one of my favorite interviews, and we've had a lot on this show, and really, I wish you the best of luck with that book. I actually have a show called Uncaged MMA on Wednesday nights, too. So everybody should go buy Uncaged, My Life as a Champion MMA Fighter by Mr. Frank Shamrock.
And then they should sit down with it and watch your show.
Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, they should just watch clips of me announcing while they do that, and then hire me to announce,
all right.
And then hire me to yell the names.
I'm gonna go put my precious 3-year-old or 4-year-old daughter to sleep now.
Awesome.
Thanks again, brother.
Good night to you, sir.
All right, you guys rock. Have a great one.
Later, bro.
Later, man.
Holy cow, dude, that was so freaking awesome.
Yeah, we didn't even get to the tag team question. Yeah.
I forgot the tag team question, I know, but we're running out of time, man.
That was awesome.
I had to bounce, and I know Chris is going to hate me for not asking the tag team question, but sorry, Chris, I'm running out of time.
He sounds like a guest we'll have on again. That's a great person right there. How wonderful was that tonight? All 4 guests were just,
man, I had
all 3. Sorry, 3. One guy didn't answer, but 3.
You'll have that, man. I wish we could go longer, but honestly, I didn't pay for a cell phone bill, man. I'm running out of minutes, and I don't want the show to die.
All right, homie.
Dave, Ian, you got any shout-outs you want to throw out there?
Let's see. What am I doing? I got a pro show coming up on November 10th that we're doing in Kuwait Casino, of course. I want to shout out to Big John. Of course, I want to wish Christos Piliafis luck on KSW. He's fighting Mariusz Pujanowski. And let's see, Houston Alexander's on that card. And he'll be the guest at our next show in Traverse City. So big ups to them. He's got James Lee and Ben Lagman in his corner. So I hope that he gets the win this weekend. Awesome. And Elevation Training Mask.
Oh, yes, Elevation Training Mask. Don't forget those guys. Dave, every Wednesday night at Uncaged MMA here on blogtalkradio.com. You can catch Dave with his host, Chris Dantema. It's 11 Eastern, 10 Central. Dave, I want to say thank you, brother, for taking the time to join me tonight.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to Chris Maltsburger as well for helping produce.
Absolutely. Dave, I will catch you next week. Take care and be well, brother.
What?
Peace. All right, gang. I want to say thanks to Mr. Frank Shamrock once again for joining the show. Jeff Neal, Phil Armour, Laverne Clark. Fortunately, we couldn't reach him at the beginning of the show, but I'm sure we'll have him on the show very soon. I wanted to give another shout-out to the Tri-County Cab Company, 309-497-1111. Thank you so much to those guys. They make this show possible each and every week. Next Monday night, gang, we'll be talking with Jim Arnavides. Jim is an old-school legend. We'll post more about his interview coming up on our Facebook page. We'll also be talking with Rick Bassman again. Oh, gosh, I can go on and on. Thanks again to Chris Maltsburger of Blueblood MMA for putting together such great talent each and every week. I couldn't say enough about Chris. What a great dude. Thanks again. Last but not least, gang, as we wrap this show up, I want to say thanks again to Tri-County Cab Company, 309-497-1111. Put their number in your phone now before you need it later. And as we leave the show tonight, gang, I'm just talking a million miles an hour. We're going to be listening to a song called 421 from my boy Dollar Bill. That's Dollar Bill Magnuson. You can find him on Facebook, YouTube. This song, again, is 421. It's the Daniel Chong song. Some of you might be familiar with the Daniel Chong story. If not, just Google it. But in the meantime, peace, and I'll holler at you next Monday.
A San Diego college student hallucinated, drank his own urine, and swallowed shattered glass after being forgotten about in a DEA holding cell for 5 days.
I think his name's Daniel Chong, he's 23, a college student working hard trying to get a degree. He woke up on 420, probably had some breakfast, took a shower, maybe called his mom before he exits. Then he called a couple friends just to hang out, take a little puff when someone brings Mary Jane out. Hours go by, chilling on the same couch, didn't know the ecstasy was chilling in the same house. It was getting late, so we decided to stay, plus he was having a good time, igniting the flame, trying to relax, not a worry on his mind, but his life would take a turn for the worst, give it time. I don't know the facts, this is what I heard, but his everyday life wasn't all about the herb. It was 420, man, tell me what did you do? I was sitting back in peace.